Dear friends of German and Dutch history, a couple of years ago, some TV chefs in the Netherlands wanted to cook from historical recipes, one of each province. And the province of Flevoland was a challenge because it is a young province. But finally, they found on Wikipedia the recipe for the Urker fish tart, which is made with sauerkraut, mackerel and metwurst. It was a challenge, but they said you can make something very nice of it. Later one found out that the Urker fish tart was a hoax created by a bunch of students from Enschede. They wanted to create something really disgusting, as they later said. They were young adults then, and they even went to a friend in a restaurant who cooked this dish, could take a picture for Wikipedia. Well, there is on English Wikipedia even a list of hoaxes, and there are quite a lot of them, but yes, we will never know, are those only single cases, or is this the tip of an iceberg, because we know, of course, only of the discovered cases. Welcome to my presentation. My name is Zico van Dijk. I am now finalizing my upcoming book about Wikis and Wikipedia, and well, this is a kind of extract for historians, so I hope that I have some general useful information for you and maybe some ideas for your own work. So, let's go. Wikipedia has become a famous or ill-famous online resource in education. There's even a saying that pupils love it and teachers hate it. But the saying cannot be quite true, because according to a survey, 54% of German teachers actually use Wikipedia themselves in order to prepare the lessons. 94% read Wikipedia at least once a month, and 35% do it on a weekly basis. So when students heard about that, well, they said that's a hypocrisy of the teachers who prohibit Wikipedia for the students. Well, what can you do instead of prohibiting reading an encyclopedia, which is a little bit strange, of course? Well, you can talk to the students about Wikipedia. Is it good content, and how does it compare to other kind of media? And what is an encyclopedia anyway? Wikipedia is not a secondary source. It is a tertiary source, or in German we say Hilfsmittel. It is not written for specialists, but for the general public. So it should be useful for the beginners and for pupils, although many articles have become very difficult and technical, of course. Well, okay, this is what you can do with Wikipedia. Use it essentially at face value as an encyclopedia, but also for the reflection about the nature of the content. And this is what media literacy is all about, median competence. It's a combination of media knowledge, of media assessment, reflecting, well, is it actually something useful I have here, and media action. Can you become productive with media yourself? And what about writing Wikipedia articles? Wikipedia is a wiki, and a wiki is a certain concept for a website. It's a platform for the production and distribution of communal content. That is content that can be changed by more than one person. It should be changed, it is useful to be changed, and it is content that is suitable to be changed, to be worked on by several people, by peers, and in the case of Wikipedia, by volunteers. Well, in such a wiki, there are a lot of wikis in the world. I'm presenting some of them, and such a wiki is a category of social media where also people can participate on the platform, but where they cannot change each other content. Well, and when we talk about Wikipedia, well, when you have an internet device like a tablet, you download one page of Wikipedia, an article, to your device, and you can read it. So, and what is the bigger picture? The bigger picture is that in English Wikipedia alone there are more than 4 million articles, so your whole life wouldn't be enough to read it. And it also means that you can look at the older versions of the articles. There's a version history, you click on the tab, and then you see the older versions, and that can be very useful for historians. For example, Eileen Oberst and her colleagues, they made a study about the hindsight bias. Hindsight bias, Rückschaufehler, means that people, when looking back at an event in the past, they believe that people could have foreseen that event. It was so obvious that it was going to happen, and they have made a study about that, and Wikipedia is an excellent resource, primary resource, to do that. Well, of course, it's only about Wikipedia editors who have contributed to that, but it is similar to the use of several editions of an older Brockhaus or Winkler Prince or Britannica, where you look how the content has evolved over the years. There is English Wikipedia, there's Wikipedia in German, in Dutch, and many other languages. There are officially for about 300 language versions of Wikipedia. They all have different content, but they copy a lot from each other. Well, 300 sounds a lot. To be honest, a lot of them are not quite active or they don't provide much good content, but you have a lot of interesting cases like the Wikipedias in small languages or lesser resource languages in dialects, for example in Luxembourgish, Limburgish, Low Saxon from the Netherlands, and Low Saxon of Germany, which used to be the same Wikipedia once, and there's also Frisian Wikipedia. And if you are a scholar about these languages, well, those are small editing communities, but anyway, these Wikipedias in small languages are very often the largest non-fictional corpus of their language on the internet, and therefore interesting. There are a lot of other wikis, other platforms that are linked to Wikipedia in some way, who have the same owner, for example, and I only want to mention some of them. Wikimedia Commons is a media repository, a collection of pictures mainly, and video and audio files, and it's a huge collection that you also can use for yourself. Wikidata is a free and open database, and for example, when you work with a small museum and you find it difficult to keep your own catalogs and databases up to date, Wikidata can be the automatical solution for you. There's Wikisource for historical texts, there's Wikiquote, which I wouldn't take that serious, etc., etc., quite a number of wikis, and I have a list of them in the description as well. Yes, and what is Wikipedia and what are those other wikis? What are they a part of? They are part of the Wikimedia movement. In this movement you have the Wikimedia Foundation as the legal owner of those wikis, of those platforms, and the trademarks such as Wikipedia, and in the single countries there are organizations who are supporting the Wikimedia movement and the wikis, of course. And how many people are active in the Wikimedia movement, that depends on the definition, but we talk certainly about thousands or even 10,000s of people, and that is quite a lot for an online creation community. How many people read Wikipedia? Well, they are not quite sure about that, but if you count the single devices that is Wikipedia read on, we talk about worldwide a number of 1.5 billion internet-capable devices, so that's quite a lot, but given that the world population is about 8 billion people, 8 Milliarden, well, it's only a fraction, and the Wikimedia movement does have significant problems to reach out to the global south, but it's a topic for itself. Yes, and there are also other organizations that have wikis, a lot of them, and one of my favorite or most interesting as a wiki researcher is the Geschichte Wiki Wien. So it's a historical wiki of the city and state archives of Vienna, the Austrian capital. It's the largest wiki in the German-speaking world, and it's interesting because it differs from Wikipedia in some ways. The content is not as free as in Wikipedia, and it's a nice collaboration between the government archives on the one hand and scholars and volunteers on the other hand, and I have a link for that in the description as well. And in general, wikis as a research topic. A couple of years ago, I said in a public discussion that maybe history is the best suited discipline in order to study wikis. Well, that was said half jokingly. It didn't go well with some members of the audience because some Wikipedians are quite serious people. But I found some arguments for that because historians, they have a holistic view. They want to know everything about something. They are thematically neutral, although they also specialize. Second, historians give a topic the chance to be interesting by itself. Their approach is not nomothetic, but ideographic, as Windelband would say. They are interested in a single entity for its own sake, and of course they also see the larger picture, but that again is an excellent starting point. And third, historians are interested in the long run, in evolution, in change and continuity. That is what a wiki is all about, change and continuity. Yes, then Wikipedia becomes 20 years old in 2021, and with that age it starts to become historically interesting. Yes, dear friends of German and Dutch history, the historian Roy Rosenzweig wrote a seminal paper on Wikipedia in 2006, a couple of months before his untimely death. And the legacy of Rosenzweig is that if Wikipedia, I quote, if Wikipedia is becoming the family encyclopedia for the 21st century, historians probably have a professional obligation to make it as good as possible. Well, of course, there is no obligation, but I hope that I gave you a useful general overview, maybe some ideas for your own work. And if you have questions, well, you can have them here in the virtual and the online conference, or write them down in the comment section. Anyway, I say thanks for watching.